All right, welcome back to another episode of Phoenix Edge. This is an RPG and gaming news podcast. My name is Hat.
And I am Eric.
And today...
And I am Stan.
And there is Stan.
Hello.
We're getting
Jump the
used
gun
to
there.
the number still.
Well, at least we're on it today. So today we are going to be talking about our impressions with the Final Fantasy VIII Remaster. And then also we're going to be talking about the announcement of Xenoblade Chronicles. Looks like it's going to be a remake of sorts for the Switch. So that was exciting. And then also we're going to get into some of the RPG announcements at the Nintendo Direct. And we'll probably kind of talk about some of the other announcements there as well. And then we have some quick news with Dragon Quest 1 through 3 and Final Fantasy Crystal Chronicles. It's got a release date now. So we just want to cover that and give some quick thoughts on that. And then finally, we have a question from Lane, who's talking about the future with the PS5 and whether or not it will sell as well if it doesn't have a portable option to play the game. So we're excited to get into all these topics, but before we do have one announcement that we do want to bring up here. Basically, over the past couple of months, we've been talking with staff over at RPGFan.com, and our conversation started around May, where we introduced the idea of possibly joining them or partnering with them in some kind of capacity, given that they cover RPGs, we're an RPG podcast, and they seemed very, very interested. However, they were covering E3 at the time, so they were a little busy and they redid their website and everything, but we've touched back again and we've met a couple of times. They've introduced us to their staff and we're totally in on all their private sharing of information and everything like that, or how they conduct the reviews and everything like that. And basically we're going to be joining them basically as partners, and we're still going to own the podcast. Nothing's going to change with our podcast. We still own our YouTube channel. We're still going to stream the podcast. They're not our overlords. They're not telling us what to do or anything like that. But they are going to help us in a couple different ways. Specifically, they're going to help us with promotion. They're going to help us with organization, kind of showing us how they do things. And in return, we're going to, use their website when we have news that we're talking about, if it's out there and it's on their website. Obviously, we're not going to not cover something if it's not on RPG Fan. But we're going to try to use them more often because we are fans of that website. I've been using RPG Fan since it's been a long time, but they've been around since the late 90s. So they're definitely been on the scene for a while. Eric, didn't you say you've been using them for a long time as well?
Yeah, I use a wide assortment of websites, but RPG Fan was like always a go-to for getting the latest information, because definitely back then there wasn't many places to go to, especially for RPGs, which was definitely, it was like a niche within a niche hobby at the time. So like actually being able to find something that's up to date on like the latest RPGs, like in the early 2000s, it was really nice to have something like that, and RPG Fan was there to deliver on that. So always enjoyed going through their website, and they're still one of the websites I go through today to try to get reviews and latest information on everything, especially for like the podcast here. Like I'm always digging and searching for any good RPG related topics to go through.
Yeah, they're fantastic. I mean, they have 2 other podcasts out there. They're audio only, and one of them's called Random Encounter and the other one's called Retro Encounter. You can kind of get what they talk about on each of those podcasts, but those go out weekly. They're regularly doing Twitch streams of different RPGs, and they're trying to update their YouTube page a little bit more as well. So they just put a video review of Final Fantasy XIV Shadowbringers. So I know that's definitely right down Eric's avenue. It just went up today, and we strongly encourage everyone to go to their website. It's rpgfan.com. and check out the reviews and see what they got going on there, because it's really good stuff.
Please do. Shadowbringers is a damn fine game. So
Yeah, I think
get a BD review.
I think their review came in, and I think they just absolutely hated it. I think it was rated as one of the worst games they've ever played.
Well, time to cancel our partnership.
No,
Nice knowing you guys.
they were very, very favorable, very favorable. So, yep. So we're just gonna keep working with them, and we'll see where this goes. But to get on with the show, we're gonna try doing something a little bit more structured today. So we're gonna be talking about the Final Fantasy VIII Remaster impressions. And I'm going to give everyone a little bit of foundation for how, like, the basic facts of the game or this port, but then we're going to get into some more details with the game. So, essentially, as we all know, the game came out on Tuesday, September 3rd, and it was on Switch, PS4, Xbox, and I think the PC version's coming. I think everyone here got it on the Switch, though, right?
Yeah,
I did. Yep.
Yeah. So, that's what we're going to be primarily be talking about. As everyone is probably aware of from our past podcasts, there was a little bit of controversy about this game with the fact that they put a skirt on Siren, the summon, which you can go get our thoughts on that in the prior episode. But anyways, little over the top with that. And then, but yeah, so one of the big misconceptions about this port, though, is everyone thought that this was going to be the PlayStation version. You know, there was all this hubbub about why didn't they announce Final Fantasy VIII for the Switch, and everyone said, well, it's because they want to do the PlayStation version. That's the best version, and they don't have the original code to do that version. They don't have that version to be able to port it. So that's why they're not doing it. So when Square announced it at E3 and they saw all this upgraded, you know, textures on the characters, everyone assumed that this, we didn't also, we assumed that this was going to be the PlayStation version, but it is the PC version. So that's kind of surprising. We'll get into whether that's affects our gameplay or not, but basically the biggest difference you'll see with the PC version is the battle menus on the PlayStation version run at 60 frames per second. The PC version, it's 15. So that might affect you, that might not. It's a turn-based game. There's no 360-degree analog stick, so it's made for keyboard. So there's only 8 directions. So you might have a little issues with trying to draw magic or trying to talk to certain NPCs. And there's no rumble feature like the PlayStation had. So when you summon, you know, your controller would shake and stuff like that. There's no rumble feature. So that's unfortunate. So that's basically the gist with what we have here. But moving on, let's get into some of our negative thoughts with the port. And this is going to be the port itself. We'll talk later about Final Fantasy VIII, the game. But let's get into our negative thoughts, and then we can transition into our positive thoughts. But Eric, as far as the port goes, do you have any negative thoughts of the version that you played, or what are your thoughts?
Yeah, and I mean, it's just exactly how you describe it. It's like there's no analog support. Like I thought it was really funny. I'm like, wait, why is Squall just like not running in a circle like I want him to? And then it turns out, I find out that the PC version didn't have this kind of support, and I don't know. It's the thing is so it it is very bare bones, the port, you know, besides like the graphical update and the music HD remaster. The game is so bare bones that like there isn't anything really special to say about it. It's just Final Fantasy VIII, except you can play it on your Switch. And I
Right.
kind of find that a negative in itself because they didn't really do much to do it to the HD remaster. They didn't even bother trying to do some balancing to make the junction system work, or maybe do some refining to the past mechanics. And I guess maybe that's a double-edged sword. And like, if you fix it, people are going to hate it because they just want to play how it was originally, or
Yeah.
either that. But me personally, I would have liked that they at least attempted to try something. Of course, I've always been against the mods in the game. This one's not too bad. But yes, there is an instant win button I saw in here. Now, granted, if I want to be a little hypocritical, I did use that X3 mod, to
Plow through the
like
game.
not plow through the game, but like if there's like long segments or something, I may turn it on just to get through it quickly. Or if I want to do draw magic grinding, I can. But then they got another button where you never the ATB cast bar is always ready. You can and always your limit breaks are always active, and every time you get hit, your HP is restored right back to it. So it is essentially a win button if you don't want to play the game, which I've talked about it in the past, but I've always been against that type of thing. I'm all for more
Did you
convenient stuff like
did
that,
you
like
use it?
times three. No,
No. Okay,
I
so
saw what.
you stuck to your guns on this playthrough.
Well, here's the thing with Final Fantasy. I know we'll get into it, but just a little quick note. Final Fantasy VIII is an easy game, and the game is so hard to not break. Like you put like the latest cure on your HP, and put like the latest and then put all your spells like in attack. It's like everything in the game is so easy, and if you know the siege ranks, like
Yeah.
you can get your that's
So you didn't feel
free money.
obligated. You didn't feel it was necessary to use the instant win, all 99 of every single spell.
There's no need for it.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
unless like you really don't know how to make the junction system work, which this is like my fifth playthrough of like Final Fantasy VIII. So I know exactly how the system works, and I tried my best to not exploit anything, but the game is just so easy to break that you have to put effort into not breaking it.
Well, was there, as far as the port goes, did you have any other
Yeah,
irritations
sorry.
with it?
Sorry, that's me doing on a tangent. But no, there isn't really much negative to say about it overall. I mean, there's no 16:9 support for the HD remaster, but I kind of thought that was a given because they haven't done it for
Mhm.
they didn't do it for 7, and they kind of did it for 9 on the tablets, but not so much on the Switch version. I believe
Yeah.
that's 4x3 also.
Mhm.
So I think it's just a lazy port. It's a serviceable port, but I think it's a lazy port.
Yeah. Dan, how'd you feel about the port?
Pretty much the same. Yeah, it's I mean, it's okay. In terms of content that they added, the times 3 fast forward feature is very useful. Because drawing the magic from the enemies is just such a chore.
Yeah.
Like I'm the type of player that when I draw a spell and it's new, right? So all my characters have none of it. You see like the question mark. You don't know what spell it's going to get you. I draw it and I will use that battle to get 100. Like I want to just max those out as fast as possible, and so I just hit times 3 and I just keep drawing from the enemy because they don't. At least very early in the game, they don't do enough damage to really have much of a threat like the regular enemies,
Right.
And something I will say about the times 3 is in the past when I've used those fast forward features, they speed up everything about the game, including the music, right? Which is really obnoxious because then the music will, it'll be really fast
Yeah.
and you can't even tell, like it doesn't sound the same. That's not the case here. So it only speeds up the gameplay, and you can listen to the music at the normal rate.
Yeah,
at the normal tempo.
I'm really happy they did that because, if you do it in an emulator or something like that, it definitely will speed up the music too. And you're like, oh, this isn't what I wanted.
It's really obnoxious to listen to that. Yeah. So then I like turn it down or mute it, like when I have it on fast forward, and then I'm like, lowering the sound and then like speeding up, and then okay, I don't want to speed up anymore. Now I can turn the music back up.
And I'll say about the times 3 also is that just a quick note is that if you're like at a part of a game where you have the timer, like when you're going in to fight Ifrit, or the timer like to run away from the robot in Dalet, like if you put the X3 on, the timer doesn't go X3. So that's kind of like a little other easy mode thing.
Oh, it doesn't really?
Yeah, the timer doesn't go faster. But anyways, I'm sorry, Hat, continue.
Well, I was going to say, I didn't even notice that. It was a good point, but I was going to say one thing I did like about it, and I pretty much played the game without it for some reason. So But if you leave it on, you don't have to worry about turning it off for like cutscenes. It'll automatically switch off for cutscenes and then switch back on. So I thought that was a nice touch too, because
Mm-hmm.
the last thing you want to worry about is like, oh crap, is there a cutscene coming up? And constantly have to worry about that. So
Yeah. So that's probably the biggest positive of the port. Well, actually, the two things: the better character models, right?
Yeah, they
So
look great.
This is the best they've ever looked in any version of FF8, basically.
Squall is, in fact, the most handsome guy there.
The best looking guy there, yeah.
well,
and then two, that x3 feature is like implemented as well as any fast forward feature can be, I think.
Yeah. There are a lot of, I think, some good positives with this port, but I did have like one or two negatives that we didn't bring up. Well, we kind of touched on, but obviously the pre-rendered backgrounds are not upscaled in this in this port. I've kind of gotten used to it the longer I've played, where it's not as obnoxious, but I do feel in the beginning of the game it's very, very jarring, especially since like some of the NPCs, Square would try to draw into the back of the pre-rendered background to, keep performance up, because there'd be a lot of NPCs in the screen. So they wouldn't be able to upscale or, HD remaster basically those NPCs. So, it's you'll have all these like high def characters, and suddenly there's this one guy that looks like his head was stuck in a blender.
Oh, they did that to Headmaster Sid and Balam Garden.
Yeah,
there's like when like during the seed exam, there's like 3 like upscaled NPCs, and then like he's in the group with them, and he's pre-rendered. I'm like, wait, what the hell? I'm like, did they seriously use like pre-rendered NPCs back then?
That one is especially jarring. Sorry, that one is especially jarring because the scene right before that, you see his new model standing in the same place.
Yeah, so they had a model to use.
But then it changes to the next scene, and then you come back and he's part of the background.
Yeah, and I didn't understand why they did that, because like it wasn't. I know I saw this video on Final Fantasy X, for example, where they talked about doing that, where they would draw the characters into the background to try to cheat the PlayStation 2 so they could have like what seemed like hundreds of NPCs, but they weren't actually moving, right? But you could go up and talk to them. But like in that particular scene that we're talking about with Headmaster Sid, there's like 3 NPCs on the screen. So like there was no reason for them to do that. And that's not a criticism of the port. That's just of the original game. But
you're going to notice it again big time when you get to the Balam versus Galbadia battle. And there's a scene where Zell is at the quad, and he's like trying to rally the students there, and they're like all lined up in front of him. Every single one of them are pre-rendered NPCs, and it's so jarring that it's like, like it's so bad looking.
Yeah,
like I understand what it is, but like it just looks so weird seeing Zell, who is the only actual NPC there, like talking to all these like pretty much these blurred figures at this point. Well, and they're all like lined up in an army group.
Yeah, it can be very jarring to take you out of the game. And what I do understand, I know there's the whole artificial intelligence that'll automatically upscale the backgrounds. For whatever reason, Square doesn't want to do that at this point. So I understand if they're not going to do that, why they're not individually touching up every single screen, because of the amount of time that would take. But I would think that those moments with, NPCs that are drawn into the background like that, those instances are rare enough to where I think that they could touch just that up, fix instances like that up where it wouldn't cost them a fortune. And it's one of those things where it's rare enough to where I think they could afford it, but it's common enough for you to notice, right? If it had just been one thing, then, it wouldn't be really much of a big deal. But one other thing I noticed too is in the overworld, because they're not really using pre-rendered backgrounds, they are able to make that all HD, but you'll see things like you're not supposed to, right? It's kind of like when you watch an old movie on a high def television, you can suddenly see like a zipper on the monster suit. It's like, you can see all the like lines where like the grass would like meet up, or you look at the wave animation on the beach and it's just 3 frames, or and you it's like,
Yeah.
okay, well there's the out frame, there's the end frame, and there's the middle frame. And
Oh, I know what you're talking about. Yeah, I've seen that on the world map. It's just
Yeah.
all these like circle and like these squares for like where the locations and everything.
yeah,
Like they didn't even remotely attempt to touch up on that.
yeah, so it's just, it makes me feel like this is kind of like they obviously focused on the characters and the NPCs, but I wish they had touched that up. And I think Eric, you touched on this briefly, but it would have been cool if they offered some other modes like they did with Final Fantasy 10 and 12, where there was basically a hard mode and maybe some like orchestrated music for give you an option to listen to a different form of the music. That would have been cool also, but you know, what are you going to expect? They didn't do that with 9 or 7, so they're probably not going to do all that. But um,
Yeah, like I said, it's a bare minimum port besides the um some of the other things like the character models. Really, the character models and the soundtrack are really the only thing they went out of their way in
yeah, I
this game.
mean,
Besides that, it feels almost like a straight port of the PC version.
and if, like the tack on, because we're basically like just positives here, is I have to give them credit. Like the HD characters look really good, like we've been saying, but I don't want to say every NPC because there's clearly those NPCs that are stuck in the background. But I would say a surprisingly overwhelming majority of the NPCs are HD in this port. Whereas in other games like Final Fantasy X, they kind of only like touched up like the main cast and then like the major players in the story, like Seymour, but like the shopkeeper wouldn't be upscaled, right? So or they wouldn't be touched up. So it'd be like very like 2 different games almost. But this version, like you even like random NPCs running around the garden and stuff, they're touched up. So I think that's like a major like plus. They definitely put some work in on that front, which is definitely, appreciated, I think.
They look really good. I mean, kudos to them for going out of the way with that aspect because there are details on these characters I've never noticed before until like these HD models came. Like all the features on Edia, Sorcerer's Edia, is just like it all looks so good. And there's like features of like Adele also, and even just I don't know I'm trying to think of, but I mean, just if you go back to each of these characters, it's just like they look so ridiculously good now.
Yeah. I owned the not the old back in the day PC version, but the Steam version. I bought that like 2 years ago, and then I did all the mods to the game. And you can have a similar effect where, the characters will be all upgraded and everything and be all super, super realistic. And they'll actually upgrade the background, like the world map and everything too. And it looks really good. But one thing I noticed with this version is that the animations, like not only are the HD characters look great, but the battle animations and everything, they're really smooth and fluid and just like really, really well done. Whereas, yeah, you could go mod it, but a lot of times those are people doing it in their spare time, and you can't really complain that Squall walks like Frankenstein or or anything like that. Like it's just across the board smooth. So major plus for that.
Yeah, there's little small details like that, like Squall's like pants don't look really detailed still.
Yeah.
They still look kind of flat, but I will tell you this, what does look really good? Now, GFs already looked pretty good in Final Fantasy VIII. I would say they were like like the best looking thing in the game graphically, and they look even better in this game.
Yeah. Yeah, I would agree with that. And I think Siren looked really good too. No, I'm just kidding. But no, I totally agree. Like the summons, the GFs, they look phenomenal. So it's I really like the HD font. That's really, really good. As before it was kind of not HD, I guess you could say. So the font's really good. So no music bugs. The music picks up where it left off after a battle. So
Yeah.
And you
Third
know
time's a
why it
charm.
doesn't look you know why it doesn't look as grating like in Final Fantasy IX? The UI like text and everything? Because this game isn't based off of mobile.
Yeah.
for
Yeah.
once.
Yeah, so it doesn't use like in Final Fantasy IX, they have the big like obvious buttons for you to like touch. And like, but it's on a PlayStation 4, and you're like, I can't touch my TV. You know, why is the fight button so massive or on the menu? Yeah. So it uses the regular PlayStation or original PlayStation UI. So that's cool. So, but what you guys think about the Final Fantasy VIII in general now that you've been playing it again?
I mean, I still really like the game. I still think the story is good. I like the characters mostly, some more than others, but I can definitely tell now after playing through games like Final Fantasy 13 and Final Fantasy 10 that like you can tell which team
Yeah.
is writing which Final Fantasy, and the people who made those games are clearly some of the ones who did Final Fantasy 8. Because as much as I like the game, like I said, I'd still recommend it all day to anyone. There are some really bad and awkward writing moments in the game that really make me cringe sometimes. Like especially when someone like Zell or Renoa says something like it. Just to me, it's like I'm thinking in my head, this is just something human beings don't say to each other. And granted, now JRPGs are pretty famous for that, but like in the realm of Final Fantasy, like these games like 8 and 13, and to a small extent FF10, like these are just things people don't say to each other, and it just immediately takes you out of it.
See, on that note, it's kind of I've been in the middle on that because there are times where I feel like the dialogue is very believable and it feels very natural, and I'm almost kind of impressed. I'm like, why don't I think of this when I think about this game? But then you'll see moments like you're talking about where it's just like so bad. Like you're like,
That's why.
oh,
Right?
this sticks out my mind more so. But you know, it does have moments where it's like very, very natural. Like I totally forgot, but I in the beginning of the game, I love how Squall and Renoa don't get along, and like he's basically just constantly like making fun of her almost like you're not taking this seriously. You jump down on the floor and you start planning, you know, your next attack on the army, you know, like this isn't a game, you know, like, and it feels very natural for his role that he's like in the military basically. But then, yeah, Eric, there's those moments like you're talking about where you're just like, this is stupid.
I can give a specific example. The scene
Sure.
where uh Renault and Squall go into the Ragnarok after he saves her out in space. And like they're having that like romantic
Spoilers,
scene
by
with
the
like
way.
eyes on me in the back.
Yeah.
And she makes like a comment like I used to all like when she gets in Squall's like arms and he's all like with her on there, and she's like, you know, my mother used to always hold me like this, and my father used to also, but not anymore. I'm like,
Dude, I don't know, man. But you know
like
what?
if you're trying to go for the win here, Renoa, you're not. You might want to leave that part out.
Yeah. Well, especially, yeah, since Squall's only mother he knows is kind of, yeah, had her issues. So that's the thing though. Like, I feel like one thing I didn't notice with this game or that I forgot about was like you have awkward moments like that, but there's other times where like the humor is just, I feel like they just nail it. It's kind of weird, but I can think of an example when Irvine first joins your party and he says like he tries to be a ladies man. He's like, all right, so Renoa and Selfie are going to come with me. And they say, is that okay? And wasn't paying attention at first. And I just clicked yes by accident. And then Renoa and Selfie got upset. Like, what do you mean that's okay? And then like Renoa's like, you know what? Fine. And then she grabs like Irving's arm and she's like, I'll go with you. And then Selfie's like, no, you go with me. Right. And they're like fighting over him. And then it's just like super awkward. And Quistis is sitting there next to Squall. and she just grabs his arm and she's like, "Oh, Squall." And like I just started like bursting out laughing because it was like it was so freaking awkward, but like I felt like it was supposed to be awkward and funny. I mean, this game has some like hilarious moments that I feel like I totally forgot about. It's just a very it makes me laugh.
I thought Quist is constantly interrupting Squall when he's talking. Like, I'll be like, "Woman, shut it! Like, can I speak?"
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, I get it. I'm predictable.
Yeah. It's jarring though. I still feel like she should not be 18. I feel that her character is clearly like 30 or 32 or something like that.
That's
Not
still one of my biggest complaints about this game.
really.
Yeah,
Just the ages.
none of the characters look their age. They all look like they're in their mid-20s.
They look a little younger with these new models, I think.
Yeah, still doesn't cut it. They still look like they're in their mid-20s. And the way they act is in their mid-20s. Why does Sid, who made Squall, who's been a seed for about a week, the leader of the of all the seeds in Balam Garden, like after a week of like being a seed member, and then like, okay, you're 17, you have no experience, you're a very introverted man who doesn't like to interact with people, but you're good with a gun blade, so you should be the leader. So it's like, this is what I get for being a main character.
so much responsibility. Yeah, that is one thing I didn't really think about, but where are all the like veteran seed members? Like, why am I the most experienced person here besides, like one person? It's it is a little strange, but I didn't.
And then Quistis is a year older, and she's an instructor to everyone.
She seems so much more mature.
Yeah, but that's because she's a year older.
Oh,
she's the mature one.
Sometimes a year, you learn a lot in that year.
Yeah.
I don't know. One thing I didn't notice back when I think I noticed when I was a kid, I just never paid attention to it. I was just impressed, but like the seamless transitions between FMVs and like actual gameplay, like they go over the top with this and it's awesome. Like there's one example I can think of when you're at the communication tower and the invasion to Dalet. You're talking with the Galbadian officer there, and then you're in like regular gameplay models. A wrench drops, and it's a regular wrench in gameplay, and then it falls through a crack, and the camera goes down. And when it goes down and looks through a crack, suddenly you're in like a super detailed FMV of like this wrench falling all the way down this tower, and like clearly that's not what it looks like on the 3D model of the game, right? There's no way that they could render that in live gameplay, but they just like it just fades into that so seamlessly. And there's so many camera shots where they do that, where they're just basically showing off like, hey, look at what we can do. It's really, really cool. This was a very impressive looking game back in the day.
Oh yeah, the CG is really nice. I mean, if I want to complain about the game more, I feel like some of the supporting characters don't get enough spotlight. Like, we don't get much into Zell or Selfie. I mean, we have the moment with Selfie when Trivia Garden gets blown up, but we don't really explore that enough. And then we have Quistis, who's questioning herself as like instructor, and she gets like they tell her to quit her job as an instructor, and she does. We don't really see much of that or her feelings for Squall. I mean,
it's
the game, but we got a little bit with Irvine when he was getting the jitters for having to assassinate the sorceress. But the most character death we get is from Squall and Renoa.
Yeah, everyone else is pretty much there just to support Squall and Renoa. It seems like there's this game is definitely highly focused on them. But Stan, you're being a little quiet over there, but what did you think? I know you said it's been a long time since you've played this game.
Yeah, this is actually only the second time that I've ever played it. And the first time was back on the PS1, shortly after it came out. Yeah. So
20 years.
Yeah. I did not like it back then much at all. And
is it shaping up to be a better experience now for you?
I am not far enough really into the game. I'm about 6 hours into it to say definitively. But yeah, I remember not liking the cast very much, and that opinion hasn't changed, but I haven't even recruited everybody yet and gone through. So I have a ways to go before I can make a final opinion on that. The junction system, however, seems just as flawed as I remember it all those years ago. So yeah, but I mean, presentation-wise, game is very good, like you were saying. Yeah, especially compared to what was out at the time. So yeah, so I would say my general impressions are slightly more negative than most people, but
we'll see what happens.
We'll see. Yeah, I need to finish it first before I can say for sure.
I don't mean to be so negative towards it, because I actually do like it. Like, there's good scenes. Like, I do like the relationship buildup between Squall and Renoa. It's not just like an instant, oh, I love you. We get along on the way. It's kind of like, there's kind of like what's it called, like bickering on the way. Then just like eventually you just see like over time, like Squall's just like not just hiding his feelings. And I do like how Squall himself is always talking to himself.
Yeah.
Because I feel that I find that very relatable, because I think a ton of stuff in my head, and then I just then once in a while I'll say what I'm thinking out loud.
Yeah. One scene I liked about that on that point is there was a scene where you're told that Cypher's been executed, and obviously he hasn't, but everyone in your party is talking about Cypher, and they're like, I like the guy, or I didn't like the guy, but I didn't want him to be executed. And then they start talking about, well, he was kind of troubled and all this other stuff. And inside of Squall's mind, you're reading his thoughts, and he's talking about, is this what people are going to be like if I die? Like, is this what people are going to say about me? I don't want people to say this stuff about me. And like, it's just like, it's little driblets like that throughout the game that I think really help flesh out his character and kind of give you a glimpse into the main character that you don't normally get in a lot of RPGs. So I really like that they did that.
Yeah. And now that we speak of Cypher, can I talk about how much I don't like Cypher? Or how misused he is?
Okay.
Okay. So he has been nothing. Like, after he betrays everyone and becomes a sorcerer's knight, he becomes nothing but a punching bag the entire game. Like, even at the point where he is leading the whole Galbadia army in Lunatic Pandora, he is still so pathetic as a person. Like, it doesn't feel like he has a threatening presence. Like, he's just like that person that comes in once in a while to want to cause trouble. Like, you remember that Zaz guy from Tales of Vesperia, whatever, the crazy one? Yeah, it's like kind of like that. He comes in once in a while, and like you just brush him off to the side, and then you go back to playing the game again. And like, they even try to have these scenes with like Raijin and Fujin like talking to him. It's like, Cypher was supposed to be such a big part of this game. It's like, why isn't he like more of a threat to the party? Why isn't there more personal conflict with like him and Squall and Renoa? Like, they kind of were going off like there's going to be some kind of love triangle type of deal, because she used to have feelings for Cypher, but after he became like evil, then she was like, oh, never mind, I don't like him anymore, and they just completely dropped that.
Yeah.
And the thing that gets me the most is after you beat the game, there is one of the CG scenes is Cypher just having a fun time fishing with Raijin and Fujin. And I'm like, did I miss something? Like, he learned nothing. Like, he pushed Renoa into Adele, and then you never hear from Cypher again until that CG scene, unless I'm missing a scene and someone can point it out to me.
I think the idea is that he's no longer being influenced or anything like that. But I mean, I think a lot of the like issues with the game that I have are kind of surrounding things that you're bringing up with Cypher, is that They tried to push this game out in a year and a half after Final Fantasy VII. So a lot of it feels rushed, but my general feelings of the game as a whole, like the story and everything like that, is that the disc 1 is phenomenal. And then I feel like I really like disc 4 as well. I feel like the game has a strong start and then a strong finish. And then disc 2 and 3, it's just this roller coaster of awkwardness and really good moments and then awkward again and really good moments. And I just think that a lot of that just comes down to the fact that they were just rushing development of the game.
I think you just put it perfectly. It's like there's a bunch of awkward moments in between and some character elements that they just never went completely through with. But the stuff they did go through with, I thought was really good.
Yeah. If I could say one thing on the junction system, on this playthrough, I actually am enjoying the junctioning system. Believe it or not, I still think it's very flawed, but I think they should have emphasized junctioning more and de-emphasized leveling. So, okay, your characters can level up, but I think that it should have been very minor upgrades and stats, and maybe they could have tied like limitations on how much magic you can draw in relation to the level. But I definitely think like the drawing system, like there's a lot of things with this, but I think at its core, the junctioning system is a good idea. I just think that it was poorly implemented. It feels like they came up with a good idea, but then they realized there was a way you could break it. So they came up with another loophole where, oh, you don't get enough money to actually buy tents to refine that down into Kurajas an hour into the game. Well,
I think
that's because you have to take these CD exams. But then but they keep making all these like safety controls to try to keep you from breaking the game, but it ends up being a very unpleasant game because you can still break it, and now the characters are scaling with you, and it de-emphasizes you from or discourages you from using magic in the game, because if I use magic, my stats go down. I think they could have come up with a different way of implementing this and still kept the core elements of the junctioning system.
I agree. I think what they could have done is that based on your level, that you can only get the stats on your junction system so high. So like if you're like level 10, you can only go up by a certain number.
It would just be a small boost.
So it would give you a slight edge in battle, but it wouldn't make or break the battles. I think they should have just done something like that. I think it would have been okay to cap. So if you had things like Kuragas, it's like, well, okay, you got them, but you can't really utilize them till level 30. So you might as well use these other magics until you get to a point where you can use that.
Yeah. Well, I agree with you. I think they should have done something like that. I still like the idea of the excitement of encountering a new monster and then quickly going to the draw menu to see what new spell they're going to let me learn. So I think I would want to keep that part in the battle system. But I think that once you learn a spell, they should just let you cast the magic and use MP. And I think that you should just get like magic stones or something after the battle. I know they already kind of do that, but that should just be how you get magic spells. Defeat the monster. Okay, you got 8 Thundera stones. Okay, you can charge up your spells, or you can charge up your equipment or whatever. This whole like, I got Thundegas, it's exciting, but I can't use them because that's attached to my strength, and that's going to make my attack go down, or that's going to make my HP go down. Or if I give magic to another character, suddenly my HP goes down to like 1,000 when it was at 5,000. And it's just,
I never used magic either, just because of that, because I might want to use it for stats.
Yeah, so I just was like attacking and using summons the entire game. So it's just, it could have been so good, but they just, I know they didn't have enough time.
Our good friend Hien, I was listening to him talk earlier today, and I think he actually put it best, is that the junction system by itself is great. The monster leveling with you system is great, but they don't work great together.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing. Like, the leveling
the systems individually are really neat ideas.
Yeah, the leveling with you, scaling with you, that's frustrating for obvious reasons. And then using your magic to make your stats go down, that's frustrating. Endlessly drawing is frustrating. If you don't defeat enough monsters, your seed rank will go down. So then, you don't get paid as much money. So like that's frustrating. So it's just like, oh, this game is so good in so many ways, but just it's missing some core elements to really make it spectacular. But
And
I'm really enjoying it.
Some people tell me it's like, oh well, you don't have to do that. You can do this and make it more challenging for yourself. And I think like it's not my responsibility to balance out this game. It's the
Sure.
developer's responsibility to balance it out. So
Yeah. Well, somebody
I don't really like hearing the excuse of like, oh well, just limit yourself and it's a lot more fun. It's like I don't want to have to think about that.
Yeah. Well, I still kind of derive enjoyment from the fact that I can break the game. It does take a little bit of work to do, but I was talking with one massive FF8 fan, and he was telling me, he was kind of combating me on this, that, oh, you can break other Final Fantasy games, like Final Fantasy VII, for example. You could just master all the materia. And I'm like, yeah, but that takes like 40 hours to do. That's not something you could do in 2 hours.
Hey, guess what? Any video game any RPG, you can level up to 100 and plow through the entire game if you just kill a bunch of goblins at the main start field. You eventually get level 100. Then the rest of the game is just so easy. But good job spending 70 hours doing that.
Yeah. So obviously, there's a lot of things they can do, but anyways, so the music's great. I really like the music.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, music's good.
I really like the weapon upgrading system. I do like, you do have to find the right crafting items for it. But once you do, like each weapon upgrade is very significant and it's like a lot of oomph to it.
Yeah.
And plus the weapons themselves look really good. The Lionheart weapon from Squall is a really awesome looking weapon. And it's like really satisfying to get that.
Yeah, I agree. So in a nutshell, I know that not all of us, I haven't completed this version of the game. I'm like 16 hours in or something like that. So I'm pretty good into it. I know, Eric, you said you're pretty much at the end, and then Stan, you're about 6 hours in. But knowing what we've experienced on the Switch with the Switch version, what do you all think? Would you recommend this game to someone to play this game on the Switch, this version? You would recommend it? Okay. Stan, would you? Or you want to elaborate, Eric? Or
I mean, first off, it's $20. It's not that expensive. It is kind of bare minimum, but it is still Final Fantasy VIII. I mean, it's still very much more than serviceable port of it. For the little effort they did put in, it is really good. The character models look really good. Like I've been kind of ripping on it the whole time, but that's just because I'm much easier at complaining than I am praising things. So, but there are a lot of good moments in the game, and the stuff like the music and the presentation, the artwork, all this type of stuff like beautifully complements these moments. And because of that, it's like I think the game is more than worth your time.
Yeah.
It's a flawed gem, to put it nicely.
Stan, knowing what you know now, would you recommend this version, or would you suggest people go play it a different way?
I wouldn't suggest they go play it a different way, but I would say if you're a huge FF8 fan and you've been looking forward to this, then absolutely go out and get it. I think the Switch version helps the most with the like the backgrounds not being upscaled and playing it in the portable mode because it's on a smaller screen, and you still notice it, especially with the issues of the NPCs drawn into the background at certain times. But I can see how it would be a lot more jarring on a larger screen, versus the portable screen. So if that is an issue for you, like definitely go with the Switch version, which I think it's at least a little bit of an issue for everyone. But if you're not a big fan of FF8 like me, I don't know if this version is going to do enough to change your mind about the game, the game. But if you want to give it another chance, then I would say wait until someone has modded the PC version to be like the best possible version.
Yeah,
because that's going to happen. right?
Mhm.
Now that
Yeah.
this version's out, it's just a matter of time. Give it a year or two, right? There will be a mod out for this version because people are modding the PC versions of the classic Final Fantasy games. Like, there's like a lot of good work
Yeah.
being done to make those games as good as they can be. So I'm sure this game's going to get the same treatment. And so if you're willing to wait a little bit longer, you can probably get the PC version. First of all, you'll probably be able to get it cheaper than $20, like a year from now or so, right?
Mhm.
Pick it up on a summer sale or something. And then there will be mods if you want to get in depth with it that will maybe fix some of these issues with the junctions or add a harder difficulty or
Well, it's
um,
go ahead. Sorry.
upscale the backgrounds using the AI that we've seen with Final Fantasy IX.
Yeah.
Like, so there's two thoughts. There's like, if you really got to jump in and play FF8 again, sure, go out and get it. And I would recommend the Switch version. If not, if you're still hesitant, then just keep sitting on the fence and then get the PC version.
Yeah.
Like, which
Yeah.
will be the
I mean,
best
if
version.
you're looking for like a brand new type of Final Fantasy VIII experience, I mean, you're not going to get it unless you thought the models were so ugly that you couldn't play it, and now their models are good looking. I mean, this is just Final Fantasy VIII. It's not like
Then
not
no
like a
orchestrated
real
soundtrack
do-over. Yeah, like you're not getting something necessarily enhanced besides the character models.
Yeah,
So
like, I don't think it's as significant of a improvement as, say, Final Fantasy X, which added the 10 HD, which added the expert sphere grid that we didn't get in
Mhm.
the original North American version, or Final Fantasy 12 that gave you the option of the Zodiac job
Jobs
system
and a hard
You're-
mode. Yeah.
yeah, and a harder difficulty where you have to go through the game at level 1. There's nothing like that here. It's the same game that you played back then with some bonus features, but there's nothing in there that's going to change the way that the game is played, essentially.
I do want
you
to
think
point out.
it's-
Let me point out real quick that because I own it, like it's weird that there was already a PC version on Steam that I owned, and I can't remember, but apparently this version is a little bit more substantial than that. I think that PC version was literally just the PC version from 2000. They just plopped it on Steam. So I did install some mods that people made for that, where I was able to get the PlayStation soundtrack and like some people were able to like retexturize everything. But like I said, I think it's going to be really popular for people to mod this game with these current HD sprites because it just looks and fits so much better than having 37 people mod different parts of the game. Over 5 years, it's like not everything fits, and it's just so it's going to be really exciting. Go ahead, Eric. I'm sorry.
Oh, I forgot to mention this. Throughout my entire gameplay, I only came across one bug, and it wasn't a serious bug. There was a part when you two will likely come across it when you get to this part. When again, it's the Galbadia versus Balam scene where like they're all fighting each other.
Mm-hmm.
The music that goes on the whole time during that thing got bugged, and it turned to the MIDI version of it.
Oh, really?
So
I haven't
the
gotten to
entire
that part
time
yet.
until that theme finally changed to something else, because that theme stays there for like almost an hour. Like it doesn't change at all.
So it just went
Like
to the MIDI version?
And it turned into the MIDI version.
Oh my god.
But that's the only time it did it. No other point in the game did the soundtrack turn to the MIDI version.
But that's just lazy. That just tells me that somebody didn't complete the port before. They didn't test the full thing. They just tested, portions of it.
That's when I knew I was playing the PC port. When that came up, I'm like, yeah, this is the PC port.
I think I agree with you guys. Like, there's better ways to play this game eventually if you wait, I guess. But I'm not sure if I would recommend this version if you've never played Final Fantasy VIII before, like at all, because it is the PC version and you're going to have little issues like that. And the backgrounds don't mesh well. I'm not sure if that would affect your experience or not. I would almost say just go emulate it on your computer, the PlayStation version, and just upscale it and just play it that way. But this wouldn't be a bad way to play it. Anyways, that's Final Fantasy VIII for you. Final Fantasy VIII impressions.
Yeah, basically.
Basically, like that was the arc for our emotions. But there was another big announcement this week. Xenoblade Chronicles. They're calling it the definitive edition. I think that's just marketing speak. So we all have to say it's definitive before we've seen the game. But we're gonna pass this over to Stan because he was pointing out a lot of things that he wanted to address. But I'll get the trailer up here so we can talk about that. But give me 1 second to do that. Let's see. Let me hold on. There it goes. And all right, so we get the trailer up here. This was at the Nintendo Direct. They're going to be remaking the game. Anyway, Stan, take it from here.
Yeah, so this announcement closed the Nintendo Direct that was last week, so that it got a lot of attention, even more so than it would if they just dropped it in there somewhere in the middle. And there's only 3 things we can definitively say about the definitive edition so far. Is that, well, I mean, it's for the Switch, and then the first thing is that they've changed the character models from the original version, which there's pros and cons to that. You know, I think a lot of people prefer the original version, myself included. Although I'm not completely in the camp of hating on the new models. I want to see more of them, you know, and how they look in certain scenes. But it's definitely more of an anime leaning look versus the original game had kind of a more distinct style of its own. So
yeah,
that's a pro or a con depending on how you feel about the game having a little bit more of an anime look to it.
But we're looking at. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Oh, okay. No, if you have something to add, go ahead.
Well, I was just gonna say, you said this game's coming out in 2020, though.
Yeah, that's the second thing we know about it. Is just the release date is coming out sometime in 2020. So don't expect it anytime soon, but next year, and that could be end of the year next year, or
Nintendo does have. If Nintendo has this much to show, preview wise already, I have a feeling it might be like maybe Q3 2020. Nintendo's usually pretty good about releasing a game pretty close after it starts showing previews. So I don't think it'll be like the very last moment of 2020. I think it'll be maybe like somewhere midway.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But anyways.
Yeah, so we have that to look forward to. Endless speculation on when it's actually coming out, right? Until we get some more information or it finally does come out.
Yeah.
They may do what they did in this Nintendo Direct, which is they like to have a lot of games and have a new trailer for them and then say it's out today, you know, and then everybody freak out because that gets a lot of buzz, you know, a lot of people talking about it.
Pat would go buy it immediately.
Yeah.
You know, everyone talks about the character models of this game, but do you know what's the number one thing I really want out of the game? Now, I want to note that this was my favorite JRPG back during the Wii 360 PS3 era. Like, I thought this one just topped them all. I loved it so much. Yeah. But the number one thing I want to see come from this remaster / remake-ish type of game is I want a better UI. I want a better menu, and I want a better UI. That's it. That's what I want mostly out of it. I mean, it's still fine per se, but the amount of menus you go into in the game, like for all the gems and everything, or make it more easily accessible to create gems and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. That's the kind of stuff I want from the game. I know everyone wants to talk about the character models, so
Well, some people would say it's not a true JRPG unless the sub-menus also have sub-menus of their own.
Oh
No,
yeah.
I'm just kidding. But it's
I mean, if you saw our earlier episodes when me and Hat talked about Xenoblade 2, like I could not shut up about how much I hated the UI of the game.
Yeah.
I hated it so much.
Well, I mean, because I went back and listened to not the complete thing, but I was just curious. I listened to maybe the first half hour of our Xenoblade Chronicles review, the review of this first game, and aside from the clunkiness of it, I was surprised how much we've improved. One of the things that came up was I said in that review, I said if they ever remake this game, one thing I want them to do is shorten some of these dungeons. And now that it's been such a long time since I played that game, like I'm a little more apprehensive about that because I feel like those dungeons, like as much as a pain in the butt they were and how long they were really, really unique. Each one felt unique. So I feel like they'd be taking something away. But one thing that does stand out in my mind is that freaking user interface. I mean, I don't know how they could make it any better without like making it simpler because it was pretty organized, but Jesus Christ, I would spend an hour and just the menu, like not playing the game. I would just be like just messing with my equipment, I just trying to like go through all my items and it would take an hour to get through that.
Yeah, there's a lot of like upkeep between exploration sessions with all the equipment and everything. Yeah, definitely if they could streamline that, that would be ideal. And also the menus, they will be in HD and have some different font at least, so maybe a little easier on the eyes. I think you played the emulated version. Did you have it like upscaled?
Yeah, I
when
did.
you played it?
Yeah, nope. I was not playing it at the Wii resolution. I did it like max that my computer could handle, and it looked phenomenal. So
okay,
man, I've already played through it 3 times. I played the, of course, I played the Wii one. That's like the first that, like, I wanted to play this game so badly. I bought the European version. I actually modded my Wii, and the only thing I did to my modded Wii was unlock the region locking just so I could play that in the last story. And I love that version. And then like I played the Dolphin version, the HD mod and I played the 3DS version. And I told myself I'm not going to have any inspiration to ever play this game for a long time. And then Nintendo Direct comes in and says, "Oh yeah, you're playing this a 4th time." I'm like, come on.
Yeah,
it is. They gotcha. Yeah.
And in all honesty, I mean, I think like things that could be improved, right? Like I think very clearly they could improve the party AI because through like a quarter of the game, Sharla is basically your only way of healing, the only one with real healing abilities. And she would just, if you left her to her own devices, she would just like overheat her rifle and just constantly not be able to heal or just instantly spam all of her magic away or whatever. And then like when you needed her, she wouldn't be helpful. So I would have to play as her in order to keep her from doing that. And so I think the party AI, if they could actually improve that and make that a little bit better, I think that would be a definite welcome change for me, because that was very, very frustrating.
This may sound silly, but do you know what I do want in the game? I want a glamour system. Like I don't like my characters looking mismatched just because the gear is better looking or like the gear is better stat wise.
Yeah.
I just want them all in their original
the
whole way through.
I agree, because you see like it's very, it takes you out of the moment with the story when, Shulk, because the best outfit is him in like a Speedo. Like you have to watch him like, do a story sequence where he's supposed to be very emotional, but he doesn't have a shirt on. It's like, or and he's got like a big like ridiculous helmet on or something. It does take you out of it for sure. But I wonder. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Well, real quick, I agree with you on the party AI point, especially for Melia. Because she has like all her spells, but you're supposed to use them in a certain combination to like really maximize her efficiency and like her damage. Because you
Right.
can, if you know what you're doing, you can do like an absurd amount of damage with her, but you have to control her, right? You have to switch to her as the player. And I know a lot of people don't like to do that. A lot of people like to probably just play the game as Shulk from beginning to end, maybe switch to other characters now and then. But yeah, if she's on AI, then she's almost useless.
Yeah.
She's such a worse character if the AI is controlling her compared to other characters. Like Ryan and even Dunban is like pretty efficient in their role, like as a tank, when the player is not controlling them. But yeah, Sharla and Melia less so.
Yeah.
Especially Melia, I think, is like probably the worst character as an AI.
Totally agree.
partner.
Unless you're willing to control them yourself, then you it's probably not a good idea to have them in your party.
Yeah, which is like such a waste, right?
Well,
I agree. I mean, I felt like I had to control them half the time. Like, would you do what I want you to do?
yeah. One on the gameplay though, one thing that I don't know if they would actually change this because a lot of it's very story focused, which I liked, but it drove me nuts that they would tell me how to do a new technique and then be like, okay, now before you even get to try this, go fight this boss with this new technique. And I'm like, man, you really like up the stakes here. This boss is like taking a quarter of my HP on every hit if I jack up. And like you couldn't let me try this new technique with like, I don't know, like a rat or something that was like a little less like, but the game would let you start the boss battle over if you died. But still, I was just getting like flopped around every boss battle until I figure out the technique. It was really frustrating to me. So
yeah, I can see that. Yeah.
If they could figure a way out to do that. One thing I think they are going to do though, I would suspect voice acting for all the NPCs. That would be cool.
I
wonder.
Will they need to get British voice actors for them?
I'm okay with that.
They should to match like how the other characters talk. Yeah. Yeah, they should if they're going to do that.
Dunban.
Yeah.
And go ahead.
No, go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say they can just replace Shulk and Ryan with like Frodo and Sam from Lord of the Rings.
And look, as much as I love Ryan time, it's always Ryan time.
Yeah.
But I really wish they like put like a filter on how much you want to hear that.
Well, it'd also help if, they could keep Ryan's intelligence level in the double digits throughout the entirety of the game. He starts off as a great character and like halfway into the game, he just becomes an idiot like for the rest of the game until like the end. So, that'd be, but I don't know how much they're going to change. Are they going to it looks like they've obviously are updating the character models, which we can get into, but, are they going to like really change that much of this game? I know, Stan, you were talking about, looks like they're giving us access to some new areas, maybe.
Yeah, that's the third thing we can know for sure. At the very end of the trailer, after the title and the announcement, they just give you a brief kind of view of a vista. And if you've like looked into the development of Xenoblade Chronicles, you know that that's what we believe is the Bionis left shoulder and like left arm area, which you never go to in the original game. But it's on the original disc. That's how people know where it is and like that it even exists. So it's interesting. Like people have gone into the well, I mean, they've dumped the game onto their computer, and then that's actually an explorable area as long as you know where to like how to access it through. I'm not sure how they did, but there's videos you can see of people like actually running around, and it's totally empty. There's no NPCs or anything, but it looks like mostly finished already on the Wii version.
Interesting.
That'd be really cool if they make something out of that. Like maybe like add new side quests, or maybe some like major side quest that's like
actually good.
That dives you like more into the lore of the game.
Yeah.
That's surprising to me because the director of the game has been quoted as saying that Nintendo told him that he could take as long as he wanted and that he was able to do everything in the game that he wanted to, which was unusual. Usually he has to cut something, but this game he was able to do everything. So it makes me wonder why he didn't want to include that part of the game. But maybe go ahead.
Yeah, this is a huge area that was cut. Like, this is at least the size of the Gower Plain, which when you come out, that's kind of the first area that really like wows everybody, like how large um, the locations are in this game. And this is at least the size of that, probably bigger. There's like a village area and like a lake in there, and then like a whole section with like bridges like going across like some like tall mountains, kind of like very narrow bridges that if you fall off, you fall off the whole Bionis. Yeah, so it's a very large area. So I don't know what he means when he says he
maybe he
means
means
he wanted
story wise or something like that. Maybe.
It's possible that this is like an end game area for like maybe it was all intended just to have like side quests and like non-plot related quests and battles and stuff, like all end game content.
Yeah,
maybe. I guess we'll find out when the game comes out.
How do you
think you think they'll go above and beyond in remastering the soundtrack? Because the soundtrack is already damn near perfect as
it's already great. Yeah.
Like I'm wondering if they would do anything more to it. Like even the Smash Bros soundtrack, like they did, like there's very minimal tracks that actually like remix the themes. Like I think there might be some unique version of Guar Plain, but besides that, they're all just like straight.
Yeah.
Converts from the game.
That's one thing that I find a little off-putting about this, and I am excited that we're getting this on the Switch, but like when I think of games that need a full like remake, this isn't one of those games. You know, it kind of makes me think like if they announced that they were remaking Final Fantasy 12, I'm like, but that was already like an awesome looking game on the PlayStation 2. If you would have you just upscale that and like it looks great. Like this game looked phenomenal on the Wii, and when I played it and emulated it and like played it as upscaled as I could, it looked great on there. And I just like you could have taken that same game and just ported it over, and I think I would have been happy with it just touched up a little bit because of the things you brought up. Like with the music is good, the areas are very individual and very creative and very individual to their own areas. I don't see a lot of areas that seem like they just repeated textures or anything like that. Like it's very well done. So it's I'm kind of like, okay, cool, you're remaking it, but you didn't have to. I would have been okay if you just put the original out.
Well, I see what you mean by like, yes, there's already like a perfectly good version of the game, right?
Mm-hmm.
But this game definitely needed to come to the Switch in some way.
Absolutely.
Yeah, because it's like one of the best RPGs in the last. It's actually been almost 10 years.
That's the funny thing.
The game came out in 2010.
That you could have just done a straight port of this game and maybe just let it upscale to like 720 or 1080p, and people would have been perfectly fine with that.
Yeah, exactly.
So them deciding to go this far in it is just why I love Nintendo so much. Like when they want to like do something like an HD remaster for better or for worse, they really go out of their way to make it look better without like I know the artwork is controversial for this game right now, but like they do so much without feeling like they compromise what like looked so great with the originals.
Yeah.
So how do you all feel about the artwork? I know, Stan, you sent me a little image that I can try to get up on the screen here if you give me a moment. But what are y'all's thoughts with the artwork? Clearly they've changed Shulk's image.
Yes. I'm satisfied with it in the sense that they made it anime, right? But it's not so anime that it looks like Xenoblade Chronicles 2.
So I have the image you sent me up on the screen right now. So
yeah. So the one on the far left is obviously the original image. The original character design. And then you've got it's in order of the game's release. So you've got Smash Brothers, and then you've got Xenoblade Chronicles 2, and Smash Brothers Ultimate, which is nearly identical to the Smash 4 game.
I'm just so glad they didn't use the Xenoblade Chronicles 2 type.
Yeah, that's pretty much the boat I'm in.
People want to complain about maybe the current artwork. Just remember, it could be worse.
Yeah.
He just looks so much younger to me on the right than he does on the left. And I'm not saying he was an old man before, but he clearly, like, I think they're trying to make him look like 4 or 5 years younger, because Xenoblade Chronicles 2, that introduced a lot of people to this franchise. And I think that they want to be more in line with that artwork with a younger protagonist. So maybe they felt the need to make Shulk look this young. But if you look on the left, he looks maybe 16 or 17. On the right, I mean, this looks like his little brother. You know, it's just, but it's not, that doesn't mean it'll be a bad game. It's just a different direction, which it goes back to when I said I would have been okay with just a regular port. You know,
I actually think he looks closer to the Smash Brothers model than either the original Xenoblade Chronicles or the Xenoblade Chronicles 2.
I agree.
Especially if you compare to the Smash 4 model, if you look at his face, because he's kind of got a smirk or like a little smile in that picture. And then you look at the Xenoblade Chronicles Remastered, it's clearly like got a little bit more anime influence in it, but it's nearly identical. And that would make sense to me, because most of the people who have played as Shulk or even heard of him have done it because of Smash Brothers.
That's
right?
true. That's true.
So if you decided we're going to redesign the character first, like, so that's the first decision, because like you said, you could just decide to upscale the game and put it on the Switch and not go through all the trouble. But once you've decided we need to do new versions of the character models, it makes sense that Smash Brothers would be the one that you try and make it look like, because that's actually the version that most people who are familiar with the character are used to, right?
See,
it is kind of like a meet in the middle of like the very original one and the Smash one. I feel. I think my biggest complaint of the remasters design is, just simply put, I think it just looks too clean comparatively to the original artwork. There was like a certain like distinct uniqueness from just like not looking too clean, and it just looks like they just cleaned him up like a little too much. Right. Not to the point that I don't think he looks good. I think he looks perfectly fine for what he is, and it's not going to bother me at all in the remaster. Even though, I mean, if you ask me between all these pictures we see, I obviously like the one on the left the most. But for what I see over here, I don't think it's that bad. It could definitely be worse. It could be the one right here in the middle. That looks,
Jesus
I
Christ.
think that just looks awful.
I mean, he looks
Sesame Street,
right, in that middle picture in Xenoblade Chronicles 2.
Like he's got a baby face.
Yeah, just with how round they made the face versus, like the other ones where he's got more of a longer jawline. Yeah.
It seems to me that I agree with everything you're saying. It's not that bad, and we definitely could have been worse. But it seems to me, if we're using this logic that, okay, a lot of people know Shulk from Smash, you know, we're going to try to use something in between there, so it's not going to be such a drastic change. But I'm like, you're just keeping like the sins of the father. Like this was a bad decision to do it like that in Smash. Let's stop it right here. It's like when Titus from Final Fantasy X, his name was Titus. That's what it was intended to be pronounced as Titus. But one trailer goofed up his name, and forevermore it's Titus, because that trailer goofed it up. It's like, no, let's just acknowledge this was a mistake. And but anyways.
It may not be a perfect analogy, but like Lord of the Rings, right? Before the movies existed, those characters had all kinds of different interpretations of like that artist had done over the years, right? And they looked similar, but not the same as like what the movies ended up looking like, right? But those movies were so huge, and those actors is what drew so many people into the universe, right? Into Tolkien and Lord of the Rings. That
sure.
Now, if you make a future game or anything off of Lord of the Rings and Frodo's in your game, you're making his character model to look like Elijah Wood, right? Because that's what everybody is used to. That's
well, we're
that's
seeing that
become like the default version of Frodo, right?
we're seeing that right now with Geralt of Rivia. With a lot of people are upset that the new show, which has the author working on the show, hey, this is what he's supposed to look like. People are upset that he doesn't look like Geralt from the video game
character, right?
because that's that's the way people know him. Yeah.
Yeah, like how many millions of people bought the video game versus read the books,
right?
And even then, the books are just giving you a description, which can be interpreted differently by different people, depending on how you, and with different translations of the books and everything, like, so different people can interpret how he actually looks.
I do think to a certain extent you should put some familiarity in your show. Like the Witcher TV show, like I get they're like, okay, we're going strictly by the books. We're going strictly by the books and stuff like that. And I appreciate that. But if you also want to draw in the audience, the reason why The Witcher is so popular right now, which is obviously because of the video game, is you do kind of want to put some kind of familiar elements from the game in there. Like you do kind of want, I mean, Henry Cavill looks like Geralt enough. So I think that already looks pretty good. But like if you have someone like Triss, like kind of trying to make her look like the video game model a little bit, just so people have something like to attach to it immediately. It's like when you do stuff like this, you're kind of asking people to get into something completely different, which may be hard to draw them in because of that. Because the first second people saw the new Triss in the TV show,
there's
like,
a lot of
there was like a lot of complaining. And I'm not saying that either side is right or wrong. I'm just saying if you're someone who's trying to get a lot of people to watch your show, you'll probably find out why a lot of people have gotten into The Witcher.
What's funny about that is the author tried to like calm down a lot of that like anger and said, I reviewed this, I helped with the selection process. It's not exactly like in my books, but she does a very good job of portraying the character. She understands the character. And then Twitter was just like, we don't care. We don't care what you have to say, sir.
That doesn't fit the narrative, right?
Yeah, we played the video game. We played the real version.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. So.
But anyway, Xenoblade.
Xenoblade.
Yeah, this character, the remastered character, it looks like 90% the Smash Brothers model and 10% anime to me. And I've seen other people kind of echo that kind of same sentiment.
I think a lot of people are going to like the new model.
Yeah, like I'm with Hat that I would have preferred just the original model upgraded to HD because I like the original artwork. But once they've made that, yeah, exactly. Once they've made that decision that the model needs to be changed, this result I don't think is a bad one. I think
it could have been a lot worse. Yeah, that's for sure.
So,
But
that's mostly what we have to go off right now. They haven't shown anything else besides a little bit of comparisons. Like they showed off Fiora also, and I mean it's kind of like the same deal with her. She's just a lot more cleaned up looking. It's kind of like what she would look like if she was in Smash Bros.
Yeah,
but I mean she looked fine also. But that's the most we have to work with right now. So
yeah, the trailer looks really good. It's really far along. It seems like that could just be, hey, let's slap a trailer together with some scenes from the game. But it looks like it's making really good progress. This might be that game that Monolith Soft was supposedly hiring for, like a lot of people for. Maybe, I don't know.
Maybe I think people thought that was the new Zelda game.
Yeah, Breath of the Wild 2. They were hiring for map design. And I think they brought Monolith Soft back for Breath of the Wild 2. So
yeah. I remember a lot of people thought this was, but there was this rumor going around that there was going to be a Zelda Xenoblade Chronicles styled game. Like it was going to be an RPG because they were seeing a lot of hiring for things that were usually consistent with creating more than map design. So that's what made people think that. So I wonder if maybe they saw a lot of job postings for Breath of the Wild 2 style jobs, and then they also saw some maybe jobs for this type of thing. Maybe. So
could be. Yeah.
We'll never know. Eric, you still with us?
Oh yeah, I'm still here. I just gotta cut off the video once in a while.
Okay. No worries. Did you want to give us or did you have more thoughts? I was going to say we could transition to the Nintendo Direct.
Let's do it. Let's go have some fun with Nintendo. All right, so we had a Nintendo Direct this week, and while there is a lot on there that's great to talk about, we kind of just condensed it down to the RPGs that they announced. There is an awful lot of RPGs they announced, like Pokemon, and if I pull up like one of the pictures, they're in the Dragon Quest 11S and those type. We kind of just wanted to bring up like particular ones that really caught our eye through it, and that were kind of more new announcements. The first thing that we got through the Nintendo Direct is we did get an official release date for the Trials of Mana remake, and that is going to be April 24th, 2020.
I'm okay with that.
Quarter 2, 2020, which is pretty good. I thought it was supposed to come out in January, and I guess maybe I saw that wrong.
Well, let's double check because we don't want to be saying. I'll check right now.
Yeah, but I mean, that game's looking really good. I know we talked about it before, but I mean, like, this isn't just like a lazy 3D
April 24th.
remaster remake port like Secret of Mana was. This is a brand new game being like built from the ground up. That's just like the same world and story.
Yeah, and I think
Trials of Mana.
I think April 24th is a good date too, because that's a little bit after Cyberpunk, a couple of weeks. So maybe conceivably I could be tired of that game for a while and jump into that. So
after FF7 remake too. So I guess you don't. I guess you don't want to step over your own toes with that.
Yeah. What else we got?
Give the game a chance. Yeah. Release it well after that.
Yeah, but that's looking really good. That's going to come out in April. The other awesome thing here, I personally love this, was not only did they bring Divinity Original Sin 2, the definitive version, onto the Switch, which you can get right now. You can go and buy it right now on the Switch. It's available. They made it cloud save with the PC version.
That's awesome.
So if you have the PC version right now, and you're already like midway through the game or something, it's okay. But if you like did want the Switch version, but it's okay. You do have to buy the game again. But the really cool thing is it's cloud save, so you can play on your PC with your high tech like specs and everything, 120 frames per second. Awesome build setup. And then when you need to go out somewhere, you can pull your Switch out and you can just continue your save from there. And I think that's a really cool idea that they're allowing between the PC and the Switch to do that. And I really hope that other games in the future decide to take some inspiration from this, because I would love to play like maybe like something that's maybe a little more high-end tech spec wise, like on maybe like the PS4 or the PC. And if I got to go out somewhere and I want to take my Switch with me, I really like the idea that I can just use a cloud save and play on my Switch somewhere else. So that's really awesome for this. Now, granted, you do have to pretty much buy the game twice, but if you do want like that type of feature, then it's there and it's available and you can do it right now.
Yeah, that's really cool.
And this is going to be the third one here. This is actually this is going to be a big one for a couple of people, because I've heard the people say this a lot of times that they've wanted a Switch port of this, and it's finally coming. And January 17th, we are getting Tokyo Mirage Sessions that was originally on the Wii U. And now it is coming to the Switch. And what exactly that game is, it's a crossover game between Shin Megami Tensei and Fire Emblem. And it's kind of like they take like elements from both games and they put it together to create like a very J-pop Persona light like RPG is probably the best way I can explain it. It's really still its own type of like story, world, and game, but it uses elements from both Shin Megami Tensei and Fire Emblem, in its gameplay and its references and stuff like that. So kind of in a weird way, it's kind of like its own Kingdom Hearts type of deal, where it has like elements of the games they refer to, but it's still like its own product. I played this on the Wii U back then. I didn't finish it. It really wasn't my cup of tea. It's a very otaku game. But the presentation is really nice. The combat I thought was pretty decent. Even though you're kind of like performing a concert every battle. It's really hard to explain. It's something you kind of just have to look up, and
it looks very Persona like.
Yeah, it's Persona light. Like it doesn't have as heavy elements as Persona does,
Sure.
but it's still, if you're someone who's a big JRPG otaku type person, like this game is like 100% up your alley. So that is coming to the Switch in January. So if you're into those type of games, this one's finally coming. And the next one we have was called from the people who created Pokemon Game Freak. It's a new game that's called Little Town Hero that's coming out on October 16th.
Previously, it was just called Town, right?
Yeah, originally it was just called Town, but now they have a full name for it. And it's, from what I saw, it's a game where you build and protect your town from like other monsters, and you use like certain elements. Sorry, I didn't look too deeply in this one, but from what I saw in the direct, it's like you just like battle monsters and like protect the town, and there's like story elements and everything that build from that, and you do a lot more for it.
A very interesting idea that Game Freak, the maker of Pokemon, is making their own game, and this is going to be a new RPG for them. It's got the composer from Undertale, Toby Fox. Well, the creator of Undertale, he's composing the music, so that's pretty cool too.
Yeah. So if you're a Pokemon fan and you like Game Freak and you want to see what else they got in store, like keep up with that, and it's actually going to come out next month also.
What's weird is it's coming out around the same time as Pokemon Sword and Shield, and that's another it's kind of conflicting, but anyways,
that's going out a month before, so yeah. I guess one step over too badly.
I wonder if there are Game Freak employees who are like, please everyone buy this game so that we can start making things that are not Pokemon, right?
Well, it seems like a side project for sure. It kind of looks like something their B team made. Now, granted, the graphics look really good on it. Like the cell shading, I think is pretty legit on it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it looks really well done for sure. I just wonder if they're so used to, they've created all these Pokemon designs, like 1,000 of them. If we're going to see enemy designs that like they forgot, oh crap, this is a Pokemon.
Sneaks in there.
Yeah.
Or they're like hoping, they're just like, please, all I've done is draw Pikachu for 3 years. Like, I just want something new, like, please, I want to make Little Town Hero 2, like, please let this sell 1 million copies.
I can do something else. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, if you want to see what they're more capable of, then, wait for that next month. The last thing to come from the Nintendo RPG wise, which was pretty damn awesome that came out. It was kind of predictable, but since the subscriptions were about to go out for a lot of people this year, or in September, but they released the Super Nintendo Classics finally, and it's actually pretty awesome. They released 20 games for launch. A lot of them first-party Nintendo titles like Super Metroid, Legend of Zelda: Link to the Past, Super Mario World, Super Mario Kart, Star Fox. They got a lot in there this time to start with a big bang. And it's got really cool features too. You can actually do online multiplayer. So like if me and Hat wanted to play each other in Mario Kart, he lives in we live states away from each other, and we can play Super Nintendo Mario Kart together via online, which is really cool. And the app also has features to let you play in 4x3, pixel perfect, or CRT mode. And of course, it has like save states and load states also you can put. But for right now, the only RPG it has in there, and I'm sure they're going to add more in the future, is the first Breath of Fire. Not the second one, but the first one right now is the only RPG related choice right now.
I don't like that game.
It's an okay game. Like the games that come after it are so much better. But this game is okay for what it is.
This is a really good lineup of games to launch the SNES service, because there were so many people wanting this as part of their online service. The NES games were fun, but SNES games, that's where a lot of people wanted. That's where the fun's at. And man, these are some good games.
Yeah, really good I'm games. Really hoping to see games that like both like Europe and North America never got. Like Europe never got like the original Chrono Trigger, but they did get the DS one. So I hope like they get that version of Chrono Trigger.
I've been thinking about that, because I'm surprised. Like I've been playing A Link to the Past. I played some Star Fox. I've played Super Metroid. I mean, there's a lot of good games on here that they just give you for the online service. But I wonder if they would give us something like Chrono Trigger, because I know it's been available in the past, but Square could release that for money and like make a lot more money. It makes me wonder if they would agree to that. I guess they've done it in the past. So
you know what's the number one game I want to see on there, and I want everyone worldwide to get it, is Terranigma. That is a game that people need to play and discover.
Yeah, if they could put games like that didn't really get released in all the regions, and that way it would be something new to play, that would be really cool.
Now, here is something Nintendo did say. How they did the NES games over the course of the year was they released 2 to 3 games a month. This time, though, they confirmed that how they're going to release the Super Nintendo titles over the course of the year, or if they even go beyond that, is they'll release it whenever they damn well please. So that means you could get like 4 or 5 within a month. You could get 1 or 2 within a month. It's whenever they decide to release them now.
Well, they probably just can't commit to the same release schedule, I'm guessing, because so many of the great Super Nintendo games were third party, and so there's like licensing things that they got to work out.
Maybe so they shut all the ROM sites down, and now they need to find a website for these ROMs to download.
Yeah, so they don't want to commit to anything, because then that those companies are going to be like, oh yeah, you need the rights for this for next month's batch of Super Nintendo games that are coming out. Like, so you really need my game really badly now, don't you? Now they're not as committed, so maybe they won't have to pay as much, or they'll have more of a, I don't know, less expectations, right, to deliver these games consistently.
But the way I see it here, you pay $20 a year for the service. What they just gave you, like Super Metroid, Link to the Past, Super Mario World, these back on the Wii U and the Wii, these used to be $8 each to download and play.
It's a crazy good deal. It's a really good deal.
Yeah, that's
so for $20, you got like a launch 20 games, and then you're probably going to get another 20 to 30 over the course of the year.
But the thing is, they said they were not going to be releasing the SNES games. I think you already said this, but just to reemphasize, they're not going to be releasing the SNES games on a monthly basis like they were with the NES games. They said it's going to be a little more sporadic. So, if on October 1st, we might not get 20 more SNES games, we may have to wait a little bit to get a few more, right? So... But this is a really, really good foundation. They could have easily just given us some mediocre Super Nintendo games with like A Link to the Past. And that's what everyone would have talked about. They didn't have to give us...
I was getting ready for them to say like, oh, we got some great games coming. We got F-Zero, Pilot Wings, and Super Mario World to start with.
Like 3
and you'll
games.
get the games that you'll really want probably sometime next year.
Yeah.
No, they went all out, man.
Yeah, they gave like half, like almost half of the Super NES Classic lineup there, right?
They really wanted you to make sure that you renewed your subscription.
Well, I've been I paid, but I wasn't going to renew my subscription, honestly, because I just was not playing the NES games, because there were some good ones on there, but I found like I would go months without playing them because they weren't putting anything that I would actually want to play half the time on there. Like there was no Final Fantasy, there was no Dragon Quest, it was all just like stuff I didn't want to play on the NES anymore. So, and for
Bike and Punch Out and stuff like that. Yeah,
it's just like this has not aged well. There was some good stuff on there, but nothing that made me want to keep paying money. But now with this SNES announcement, that's awesome. Second Entity says he wonders if the current batch will cycle out each time a new one is added, like if they'll take some games out. That's a possibility. I don't know.
No. Did you notice, you played through some games, did you notice that the frame rate in these games feel a little better? Like I played through Link to the Past just right before we started the podcast, and this is like the smoothest feeling I've ever gotten out of Link to the Past ever.
It looks,
like,
it
feels better than the Super Nintendo original.
Yeah, I was going to say, it not only does it feel good, it looks really good, because I'm using I can't remember what they call it, but it's like the very clear setting. I don't know. It's not the one that emulates the CRTV. It's the highly accurate setting that's like very sharp looking, and it looks spectacular on my television.
The colors in Link to the Past in particular stand out so much than they ever have before. Like even on like a PC emulator. For it. Like this is the best I've ever seen Link to the Past look.
Yeah, so
that's just my opinion.
This is a really good service, but I think we should probably move on to our quick news topics. So because we still have a few other things to go over real quick.
Yeah,
we all good to move on?
Yeah.
Cool. So there was an announcement, or I don't know how you want to phrase this, but there was a thing that popped up on Twitter that showed, I'm trying to get it up on the screen, that showed that Dragon Quest 1 through 3 are making their way to the Switch. And this apparently, there was an update that showed that this is going to be a PS4 version that was released in Japan that's now coming to the Switch. And there's a possibility that we could get these in the West in English. And that's definitely a very much hopeful thing for me, because these, I mean, I haven't played these specific versions. I don't know. But I played the Super Nintendo version of Dragon Quest 3, and I really, really enjoyed that game. So if I could have that on the Switch, that would be awesome.
I definitely want them on the Switch. The thing is, though, even if there isn't any plans to come to the West right away, which I'm sure they will eventually, but the reason I think it will come to the West eventually is because you can switch the whole game to English mode on all 3 games, but the only thing is you have to go to the Japanese eShop, which is all you have to do is just make a Japanese account on your Switch. Then you have access to the Japanese eShop. That's all you got to do.
But
if you download it from there and then put the settings to English in the game, all 3 games are completely in English.
So they have an English version.
Yeah. So that makes me think I'm very sure they'll come. Probably.
Why wouldn't they? It's free money.
Probably end of this year or early next year.
Yeah. If the work's already been done, I don't see why they wouldn't. And then the other story that we had here, let me get it up on the screen, is we finally got a release date for Final Fantasy Crystal Chronicles. And it is, what is the release date? Hold on.
January
23rd, 2020.
There we go. January 23rd. Yeah. January 23rd, 2020. This is kind of strange because in that initial release or that initial like trailer from Nintendo / Square Enix that showed like all these Final Fantasy games coming to the Switch, Crystal Chronicles was in the initial announcement, and that was like September last year or something like that. And Final Fantasy VIII was not even announced then, and we already got Final Fantasy VIII on the Switch in between that time. So it's going to be literally a year and a half in between the announcement for this and when it finally makes it to the Switch. And I wonder why that took so long. I guess they just didn't prioritize it because it's the least well-known Final Fantasy game because it's an off title. I don't know.
My guess is the cell phone, the mobile version, because it's also coming out on both iOS and Android.
And so they had to do all that work.
And they might be adding some like online multiplayer features, which
that would
might
be awesome.
take a little longer. Also, I don't know if they're doing that, but
they
if they are doing that, that could be a factor.
Yeah, they actually confirmed it's online multiplayer and it's cross-platform with everything.
That's a game changer for me. I was thinking
very nice.
I may or may not buy this, but the fact that it's adding that support, that's a huge deal.
Yeah, which is very surprising because like there are other games that can't get there, or other developers and companies that can't get Sony to play nice and allow them to do cross-platform. But on Square Enix's website, I saw it was advertising that like the Switch can play with the PS4 and the PS4 can play with the iPhone, and the iPhone can play with the Android, and the Android can play with the Switch, and just like everything is compatible, which is crazy. I didn't think they'd be able to pull that off.
Yeah, that's really cool. That's really, really cool. I'm definitely going to pick it up now. So January 23rd, 2020. And moving on to our final topic, we have a question from Lane on Discord. By the way, Lane's been doing a YouTube channel where he's been reviewing games. Let me see if I can't pull up his YouTube channel URL real quick, and I'll post it in the description. But he's been doing a lot of game pickup videos and reviews and those types of things. So he just did a thought on Xenoblade Chronicles, a video on that, Radiant Historia, and then he just did a video game pickup too. So y'all should go check his page out. I think this is going to be a link to his one of his reviews of, I think, Xenoblade Chronicles. I just posted it in the live chat, so y'all should go check it out and subscribe. But he asked a really good question. He said, I've been thinking lately about how successful the Switch is due to the portability factor alone. It seems like most people have given the option to buy a PS4 version of the game or the Switch version. Most would pick the Switch version for the portability option. This makes me wonder if the PS5 may do as well if it doesn't provide some of the sort of portability option, especially for third-party games and games that are not as graphically intensive. You guys think that the PS5 will sell, I think he clarified, just not as well compared to the Switch if it does not provide a portable option? So basically, PS5 comes out, it's just kind of like a PS4, but souped up. It's a standard console. It's not portable. Will that hurt it? Will that hurt the sales of the PS5? Do you think the Switch model is the new way going forward? What do you guys think?
It wouldn't hurt it. Like if they just made like a new shiny box and called it PS5. I mean, it's hitting two different type of audiences. Like there is like already the people who like the first party titles of Sony, and the secondly, I mean, just the hardcore scene, like that are not like PC, like usually go to Sony. So I don't think they would have to go the portable route to stay relevant or get the high sales numbers. But I do think that they are going to go in a direction similar to Switch, and that they're going to possibly make a second peripheral device like a Vita 2 type deal, and it's going to let you remote your PS5 to your PlayStation portable device and let you play it anywhere you want. I do think they're going to do something like that.
Yeah, I think they must know that it's a problem, right? And or like it's an area where they need to compete. Otherwise, yeah, it's a big issue. But I think they'll do either what Eric is suggesting and have a, Vita 2 or PSP 2 or whatever they want to call it, and that can receive the signal from the PS5 and go back and forth. Or they're just going to have streaming technology that can stream the game from your PS5 to a device that you already own, like your
phone
or your tablet. And
that's possible also,
yeah, because that's like really what Google Stadia is doing, or trying to do. They're trying to launch their platform end of this year, and the big draw to it is like any device. You buy the game on Stadia, like it can stream through the browser or the app or whatever, and you can play the game on any device that you own, and you don't even need a console. So I'm sure Sony is seeing that and being like, oh, so we got to do something. Like, we got to do something that makes our games more available to people who don't have a PS4, PS5, or at least be able to take your PS5
on the go
experience on the go in some way.
I think that
in some way that's affordable, because Google Stadia will be way more affordable than having to buy a PS5 and another device, right?
Yeah, I think that's a good idea. I think the biggest thing that I've seen is people saying like, hey, how much data is this going to use? Because even though you have unlimited data on your internet connection, it's not really unlimited. A lot of people, it's capped at, I think, like a terabyte or something like that, or something along those lines. And if you're trying to do, 4K streaming of a video game for 100 hours, you're going to, and still do Netflix and everything else, you're probably going to be hitting that and getting these overage charges. But I'm sure they could work a way around that.
Unless they plan on working with the 5G coverage, I have a feeling these companies could be like, you cannot remote play your PS5 unless you're on a Wi-Fi connection.
Yeah. Well, no, and that's what I'm saying. Like
on jump up your data
on your Wi-Fi. That's the thing people don't realize. Like your literal Wi-Fi, like if you have Comcast, you still have a limit you're not allowed to go over. Most people don't hit it because it's an extremely high amount. But if you do go over that, you'll get all these overage charges. Metal Jesus Rocks, he did a video on it where he showed like, okay, I hit 800 gigabytes this one month. My limit is a terabyte, right? And he said, all I do is upload videos and I watch Netflix with my family and we watch YouTube videos. So he was pointing out that if I was streaming a 4K game on top of that, he's like, I would go over the 1 terabyte. And it's like a $30 penalty to go over it. And what, maybe they'll adapt to that technology, but I don't know. So we'll have to see. But I think when I look at Lane's question, like, will it sell poorly compared to the Switch if they don't provide a portable option? My gut reaction is to say no, but maybe, because I think that like Sony's been dominating for the most part. Even when the 360 was killing it, they ended up coming back at the end, and they've been dominating for like 4 generations now by basically doing the same thing. They haven't really changed much. All they've been doing is like drastically increasing the graphical fidelity. And I think that they're at a certain point now where technologies they're kind of bottlenecked by what is affordable and reasonable and how much it's going to improve. Because right now, in order for us to see like a crazy experience, like to go from like a PlayStation to a PS2, they're talking about like 8K as like for like FMVs and stuff. Like most people don't even have a 4K television. So like they're kind of stuck, right? To have a console that's, $400 or $500, they have to be in that price zone. Otherwise people are going to go to a PC. So like, I'm not sure the PS5 is really, if they just do the same exact thing that they've been doing and not change up their strategy, I could see them losing. Because you look at Microsoft and they're willing to, they're trying anything and everything. They got their Game Pass, which is letting you play all these games. Xbox One X can play all backwards compatibility. They're putting their games on the Switch. They're trying everything. The Switch, Nintendo, they came out with like a cardboard piano with the Labo that you could play on your Switch. Like they're just trying to show like, hey, we're willing to experiment. We're willing to do new things. We're the
Microsoft is
innovators.
playing very smart for sure.
Yeah.
Like,
So
I think they realize that cloud gaming is like the future now, and instead of just like trying to stick to their guns, they're like, let's try to be friendly with everyone, so we can at least try to get as many people as possible, no matter what platform you on, to sign up to our Microsoft Online service. And what we get from like the Xbox One 2 will be a bonus on top of that.
yeah. So I mean, I do think that Sony's going to start off strong because they have all these games, but they could end up losing it if they try to just come out with another standard console experience, because I'm not sure that people are going to be able to see that much of a difference to warrant the cost difference, especially if games are going to be backwards compatible. There's a possibility certain PS5 games could play at a lower fidelity on the PS4. I don't know. We don't know that for sure, but I'm just not sure that people are going to be willing to spend $1,000 on an 8K television or even a high quality 4K television and then $500 on a console. Like, I think people are just going to look at the Switch and say, okay, I'm in the camp that I just want something that's fun to play, or I'm in the PC camp where I want cutting edge. I like that middle market is really starting to dwindle, I think. So,
well, the only way they stay on top is with their exclusives, right? Their exclusive games.
That's it,
So they're kind of doubling down on that too, with like they recently purchased Insomniac, who is the developers of the Spider-Man game, which became like one of the best-selling exclusive games of all time.
That sold a lot of PS4s. That game alone.
We know that they bought them and they just assigned them to the sequel, right? Spider-Man 2 exclusive to PS5, like whenever it's ready. Probably not right at launch, but at some point. And
it's
then
probably a 2022, 2024 title.
Yeah, they'll have Naughty Dog working on a Uncharted game or like a new project, maybe something brand new from them. And their God of War team, I think, is probably making another one, so they're trying to make sure they have that steady.
They did confirm a Horizon 2 also.
Ooh.
Yeah.
So that's probably a PS5 title.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think that,
right, because that game came out a while ago, and I'm not sure what that team has done since then. They may have just been like assigning them right to the PS5 ASAP, so that they have strong games coming out the gate.
I think they'll be okay for the PS5 even if they don't innovate. It could kind of hurt them in the long run towards the end of the PS5's life cycle. But once we start talking about like the PS6, I think if they're still trying to do the same game, that's over. Because once you have something like a Nintendo Switch that can do 1080p in portable mode at 60 frames per second, there's going to be no one trying to like be attached to their living room. Like there's no reason to do that, So
yeah, they'll definitely lose. Like, it won't sell poorly, the PS5, but they're definitely going to lose market share to a Google Stadia or a like you said, like a next generation Switch in 5 years from now or something. Like, if they just kind of rest where they're at, if they get complacent and think like, oh, this PS4 formula will work forever,
Yeah. So, yeah, all the Xbox needs is all Microsoft needs are some games, right?
Yeah,
and it would be a fantastic console. So, yeah. But anyways, I think that wraps up this episode. This was a longer episode, but hopefully you all enjoyed it.
It's a lot to get to.
Yeah, we had a lot of stuff. Apparently, there might be some possible Final Fantasy VII Remake gameplay footage that's coming out, possibly. Ooh. I think Square announced that they're going to be streaming like 45 minutes of gameplay on YouTube, so that might be interesting to talk about next week. But I guess until then, we'll chat with you all on Discord, and if not, we'll see you here. Take it easy, guys.
Take care.